Good evening and welcome to the August 19th Naperville City Council meeting.
Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. My name is Bill Simon. I'm a resident of Naperville and I'm speaking on behalf of NEST. First, I want to thank you for all your time, your hard work, and your commitment to our community. We know that each of you has spent long hours digging into this issue, listening to residents, and working through complex options. We're grateful because a decision of this magnitude deserves an equal amount of care and consideration. We also want to express our appreciation that the original IMEA offer will expire this week without being accepted. That deal simply won't work for Naperville, and we're grateful that you recognize that and have decided to step back. We all want a solution that is affordable, clean, and clear, and it's clear that the original contract extension offer wasn't it. As we move forward, it is so important that we carefully consider both the financial and environmental responsibilities or implications of whatever path we choose. Tonight, students rallied outside this building to remind us that this decision is not just about today, but it's about tomorrow, their future. Their voices matter, and their energy and commitment should inspire us to take the time to get this right. The weight of this choice will fall on the next generation and it will become part of today's Naperville's legacy, making this decision here in Naperville with transparency, public involvement, and care, rather than rushing into an arrangement decided by the IMEA, is the right path forward. Thank you again for your dedication to finding the best solution for our city and for listening to the voices of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Dr. Paul Bloom, followed by Patrick Caruso.
Council members, Mr. Mayor, my name is Dr. Paul Bloom. I'm a 19-year resident of Naperville and professor of physics and environmental studies at North Central College. I am here tonight to speak to our energy situation. First, I would like to thank the council for their engagement on this matter. The future of our energy supply is obviously of enormous importance. I am gratified that so many members of this council are choosing to see that this is more than a choice. This choice is more than about just dollars and cents. You should be commended for understanding that what also matters is the moral stand that we take. Choosing clean energy sends a clear message to every member of this community and beyond that we care about the world we live in, that the health and well-being of our co-inhabitants of this planet matter to us. It sends a clear message to our children that we care about the world we are leaving them. Since our process has now apparently shifted towards attempting to negotiate with IMEA, I'd like to speak to that. The most important thing is that this process must be centered on a commitment to a careful public vetting of goals and any proposed contract, and only then approval by the council. Rushing to negotiate in some back room seems just as problematic as being presented with a take-it-or-leave-it offer. It also presupposes that such a path forward with the IMEA is the best we can do. I am not sure we can conclude this, but perhaps we have to be willing to at least try before moving on to other options. I urge the council to provide a forum for a real conversation about what we might want and what our options are. We deserve good information on all our options, not a straw man built on assumptions that cannot be challenged or tested. There are important questions to answer, and we should, as a community, commit to an open process to answer them. Are we making the right asks of IMEA? What are we willing to compromise on? And what are our red lines? Do we want the cheapest possible energy regardless of external factors? Do we want to insist on a decarbonization effort? Renewables only? Is nuclear okay? I don't have the answers to these questions, but I do know that we will do a much better job of answering them if this process is open and public. And while I obviously do have opinions, I don't have time to share them here, so I'll do so in written comments, or better, in an upcoming public forum. Ultimately, if the aim is to have the people of Naperville satisfied with our future energy choices, we need to feel that we are part of the process, that we have agency over where we end up. If the city takes up smart negotiating positions with IMEA, we have a real opportunity to make significant improvements to our energy situation. Naperville has clout. Let's use it to send a clear message that we can provide for our needs while also doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker, Patrick Caruso, followed by Ted Borland, then Rukshita Ruparel, and Mike Lipinski.
Good evening, staff, mayor, and members of the City Council. My name is Pat Caruso, and I'm here as a Naperville resident. I've also been a member of the Naperville Environment and Sustainability Task Force for the past several years. I originally moved to Naperville as a junior high kid back in the 90s. Decades later, Naperville was an easy choice when deciding where to raise my own family. Moving away from coal power towards clean energy for me is all about the youth. My 2 kids are my entire world. I have a 10-year-old daughter who just entered 5th grade. Her heroes are Mickey Mouse and the late Hulk Hogan for some reason. My 7-year-old son is a bit of a wild child, always running, even though it's critical for him to slow down and take a breath sometimes, in no small part due to his asthma. For kids with breathing limitations like my son, in Naperville, as well as in communities residing closer to coal plants like Prairie State and Trimble County, clean air is critical. Reducing emissions helps build a healthier environment in the long run globally and can have a massive impact for those residing nearer to coal plants that power this city. An hour before the start of tonight's City Council meeting, a youth-led rally gathered outside this very building with a common message: power a better future. One of our wonderful school districts, District 203, echoed that message recently in recommending that this council reject the IMEA extension offer. Whenever a vote to extend our contract with the IMEA happens, I ask this council to continue to push for clean energy for Naperville. Rejecting the extension and moving towards an open bidding process is one way to get there. Amended versions of the existing contract may make promises for cleaner energy than the energy mix we receive now, but I ask that this council look critically at how viable and realistic clean energy alternatives discussed with the IMEA truly are. Continuing this contract for an additional 20 years or moving forward with a similar contract without a real plan to accelerate this city's movement towards clean energy would mean prolonging our city's dependence on coal, a long-term threat to the air our children and future generations breathe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ted Borland, followed by Rukshita Ruparel and Mike Lipinski.
My name is Ted Ballard. I'm a Nest resident and part of the leadership team at Nest. We want to extend our gratitude to the mayor, city staff, and city council for their tireless efforts on our energy decision. We appreciate every member of the public who is here tonight or watching online for taking the time to participate. The public's heart continues to beat with Naperville's public power, but it is under duress. Ratepayers, voters, and residents should be part of the process. Nest has always maintained that our primary objective is to find an energy solution that is both affordable and sustainable. We've shared our concerns with the mayor, council, and staff about the original extension offer and the mayor's counterproposal, and we greatly appreciate the city's effort to address the issues we've raised. We remain open to all options that could reduce carbon footprint, but much more analysis is needed to know whether this proposal is merely an acceptable path forward or truly our best path forward. We continue to recommend analyzing all options before a decision is made. The points of concern and negotiation were only made public within the last 24 hours. Since then, we've received many calls, emails, and texts from residents who feel they may need more time to weigh in. Many of them have deep knowledge of energy markets and have raised serious questions. They want to know how a proposed 72-megawatt data center could affect this. It would increase our peak demand by 21% and our consumption by 30 to 40% once fully built out. What assurance do we have that new clean energy won't simply be offset by more coal power, creating more greenhouse gases to satisfy this increased demand? Another concern is that the rules for sharing new clean energy resources are not defined. If Naperville pays for 100% of these resources, Naperville should be entitled to 100% of the benefits. It's not clear that will be the case. We also need clarity on whether IMEA will encumber us with new bonds as it transitions off Prairie State and invests in transmission, thus preventing us from leaving the contract if necessary. Nest has always been willing to partner with the city in finding new sustainable solutions, but a decision of this magnitude is too important to be made with only a few voices at the table. We believe the wider community must be part of the process so all these questions and more can be answered. We will also continue to advocate for bringing in an expert in clean energy transition and developing a climate action plan. Both would help us chart a sustainable path forward no matter where electricity comes from. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Rukshita Ruparel, followed by Mike Lipinski, James Falar, and Dan Mantuka.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Rukshita Ruparel. I'm a senior at Naperville North High School and one of the organizers of Power a Better Future, the youth rally that happened this evening. Before that, I want you to take a look at this room and see all the red shirts that people are wearing. Just observe. Just earlier this evening, we held a rally outside City Hall. Over 150 people came together, families, community members, students, and from all over Naperville, even younger, honest. And that should tell you something, that young people are watching. We are engaged. We care deeply about the decisions made in this room, no matter what is said about IMEA's sustainability goals. The fact remains that if Naperville continues with this contract, we cannot get to net zero right when our contract ends. And that means we're not reaching our goals as a city. And we'll never be able to break free of that contract to choose a cleaner future. And the fact is that hundreds of us came together for this cause, and that should mean something for you and for the future of this decision. And it's not just about the 150 people who rallied today. We have over 700 Naperville residents that signed our petition calling for this exact situation. For students like me, this isn't just an abstract policy decision. It's our future. It's the air we breathe, the world we inherit, and the costs our generations will bear. I want to tell you some stories that I've heard as I've been advocating for this issue. I met a woman named Lori, whose relatives live near the coal plants in southern Illinois. They're almost dying at 25 years old, and the ones that have left that area don't live past 50. Sky, a recent friend I met at the rally, she told us that her mother died from cancer, exasperated by the poor air here in Naperville. Take both Lori and Sky as examples, and the thousands of others suffering because of us. Economics aside, just for a second, what is more important? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mike Lipinski.
Mayor, City Council, I'm Mike Lipinski. If the IMEA contract is ratified, the MDR can be pulled forward to allow Naperville to source 26% zero carbon electric energy immediately. This share is expected to increase as the contract advances. The combination of clean coal with green energy we refer to as hybrid sourcing. We believe this is a bridge to zero carbon and a workable transition for everyone. If IMEA is dropped, Naperville will forfeit the accumulated power plant bond payments of $650 million to date, and also give up the lower electric rates that result from the same bonds being paid off by 2035. PJM interconnection process for ensuring the grid has sufficient power plant capacity has resulted in record high prices as reported by Inside Climate News. The results are tied to rising electricity demand for data centers and bottlenecks in approving grid connections for new projects. The retirement of old coal plants was described as good for the environment, but the rapid loss of those plants has helped to intensify the supply crunch that's now happening, for example, in New Jersey. The United States is facing a reality that coal-fired power plants could be a bigger part of the energy mix for longer than expected, challenging efforts to meet climate change goals. New realities for energy markets in recent years have become more, not less, supportive of coal-fired plants. There are already plans to install an AI center at the former Lucent site as well as a new 230-acre AI complex going into Yorkville that will have their first data center go live in '26. Naperville is playing Russian roulette with a feel-good green plan to go with 100% zero carbon sourcing as energy markets are already facing escalating demand, rising costs, and capacity limitations. Just to reiterate, that 52% of Naperville residents earn $150,000 or less a year. Dramatic energy cost volatility will likely cause a 300 to 400% increase in future electric bills for our citizens, which could be a fiscal nightmare. We remain in support of the new IMEA contract, which will bring us to zero carbon energy in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is James Villar, followed by Dan Mantuka, Louis Halkias, and Tim Ferrito.
Hello, I'm Jim Villar, and I currently serve on the Public Utility Advisory Board. The city says advisory boards are, quote, an integral part of citizen participation in local government and an important asset for proper growth, development, and long-term stability. Appointments are based on experience and are chosen to serve in part because of their unique background and perspective. So I'd like to address an email members of the PUAB received from the city at 8:15 a.m. this morning. That email came out of the blue and contained a laundry list of demands the city has of IMEA to move forward with the proposed contract renewal. My first question is, how are these demands developed? Not having given the courtesy of an explanation in the email, one can only guess they were demands provided by environmental activists to get buy-in. The same activists who show little concern for the financial burden their advocacy will place on the citizens of Naperville. This same group that demands public input into IMEA decision-making and upholds transparency as a guiding principle. Why weren't members of the PUAB with our backgrounds and experiences involved with crafting this list? Number one on the list are egregious new demands around MDR. NEST complains there's been no economic analysis around the IMEA decision. Where is the economic analysis of the new MDR demands? Since the MDR could conceivably kick in this year, it would mean immediate and significant rate hikes for our citizens. How much will that be? Can someone show me the numbers? Mrs. Yu of CES stood at this very podium and demonstrated that by exercising the 10% MDR option, our total lifetime carbon emissions will be equal to or lower than any other option. It would take Naperville to 45% carbon-free resources by the end of next year. As a reference point, NEST's stated objective on their website is to reach 50% carbon-free by 2030 and net zero by 2050. IMEA's 10% MDR option combined with their net zero transition plan gets us there early and presumably would have made everybody happy. But apparently not, as the activists continue to move the goalposts at every turn. Personally, I favored the city accepting the 10% MDR option using nuclear because it represented a compromise to get to yes. I encourage you to pass the motion that will be presented to you tonight with the caveat that these are not hard take it or leave it demands, but represent aspirational goals for the city. City staff should be given the flexibility to negotiate reasonable terms with IMEA and to the extent possible, if only to be true to the city's commitment to its advisory boards, the PUAB should be the city's primary go-to organization for citizen involvement in any final settlement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Dan Mantuka, followed by Louis Halkias.
Next speaker.
Louis Halkias.
The Naperville City Council's mission statement is clear: to provide services that ensure a high quality of life, sound fiscal management, and a dynamic business environment while creating an inclusive community that values diversity. IMEA directly supports all these goals. High quality of life. IMEA provides reliable, affordable, and potentially 45% or more carbon-free power, key to maintaining Naperville's environmental quality and standard of living. 2, sound fiscal management. IMEA's not-for-profit structure and ownership of generation assets allow for long-term cost stability about 30% lower than ComEd rates. If Naperville walks away, we have lost the investment made over the past 15 years in paying down our share of IMEA's infrastructure. We remain obligated for 10 more years of payment without receiving the benefits for paying off approximately $650 million in bonds. We forfeit access to lower-cost energy estimated at $25 per megawatt hour when the bonds are paid off, continuing to make our power costs cheaper than market alternatives. Number 3, dynamic business environment. Stable energy prices are critical for attracting and retaining businesses. IMEA's long-term cost predictability helps support job growth, investment, and sales tax revenue for essential services. Leaving exposes businesses to market energy volatility amid growing demand and shrinking supply. Inclusive, diverse community. Affordable energy disproportionately helps low-income residents, supporting social economic diversity. IMEA keeps utility costs manageable, making Naperville more accessible to all. Leaving risks increasing inequality and undermines our shared commitment to inclusion. The PUEB has studied this decision thoroughly. IMEA's future is secure, but Naperville risks substantial financial and social losses by exiting. This is a moment for leadership. Renewing the IMEA contract honors the City Council's mission statement and secures a strong future for our community. This issue is not political, it is economic, and there will be a number of unintended consequences that will hurt many people and businesses in Naperville.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker, Tim Ferrito, followed by Ayana Mukherjee, Maureen Stillman, and Daniel Bully.
Hello, Tim Ferrito, Naperville resident. I have a couple items I'd like to talk about, 2 analyses that were done recently. The first one is one done by Kessler Energy Consultant. It was presented to the city of Naperville at the end of July 2025, and was namely around the power supply cost comparison. And I'm going to read from the consultant's, his own words from his slide. His first point is, it is very difficult to conduct an apples-to-apples comparison of past power supply costs due to a number of factors, including, and he lists 9 factors. I'm going to read 4 of the first 4. Load shape, load factor, buying power, contract term. He goes on to say, KEC, the consulting company, has attempted to reconcile these factors given the data sets that are available. Please take this into consideration when considering the above cost comparison analysis. Power supply cost comparisons are difficult to quantify. The reason I bring that up is there's been a lot of buzz about this analysis and what it showed. It needs to be understood that there's a lot of uncertainty in the data. Next, I want to talk about the analysis that Nest did and presented here at the end of July. That was an analysis of the price difference between the wholesale market and IMEA. Some issues I have with that are, it assumes that Naperville will be 100% exposed to a volatile wholesale market. That's infeasible. We are not going to expose ourselves to a volatile wholesale market. It uses simple price averages for energy. This ignores load shape impact, ideally price hours, demand, and prices, which are significant. It's missing capacity margin requirement. It's missing power marketing fee, a full requirement service fee. Additional Naperville staffing might be needed as well. It's also missing the IMEA efficiency program true-up. In summary, what I would say is these analyses as is would not be used to make business decisions in the private industry. We need to be honest about uncertainty and sensitivity of historical values. Lastly, I would say this price history is not very useful for the forward projections given the expected massive change in supply-demand balances. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ayana Mukherjee, followed by Maureen Stillman, Daniel Bully, and David Hatch.
Hello, City Council members, and thank you so much for your time today in this room and outside of this room. My name is Ayana Mukherjee, and I'm a senior at Negro Valley High School. I am a part of Power a Better Future, along with some of the other youth speakers you have heard from or will hear from today. Power a Better Future is a youth-led campaign built around exploring sustainable energy options and advocating for a climate action plan to exist in Naperville. At Power a Better Future, we have organized a petition opposing the renewal of this coal contract and advocating for a climate action plan for the past few weeks. And we have gathered over 700 signatures from Naperville citizens urging you all to create a robust climate action plan for Naperville. The petition reads, "We, the undersigned, petition the City Council of Naperville to reject the IMEA contract and commit to creating a robust climate action plan that transitions Naperville to a clean energy future." The community and youth have come together to oppose this. And we believe that Naperville should have the opportunity to explore other sustainable energy options alongside this. And we should start with having a climate action plan. As a student, advocate, and young person, I urge you to consider the implications that renewing this will have on my future and the future of generations to come. Please power a better future for us all. Will I be able to present my petition to you guys?
Sure. Director Lecloche will take that from you. Thank you. Next speaker.
Maureen Stillman.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Stillman, and I'm a member of NEST. I'm here to describe the process St. Charles used to evaluate alternative power marketer options to the IMEA contract. St. Charles formed a task force to investigate alternatives to IMEA. The task force was composed of 2 city council members, the mayor of St. Charles, the city administrator, both the director and assistant director of public works, and 3 members of the community. The city hired a consultant, Sean Kessler, who's an expert in energy markets with 25 years of experience, to facilitate the process, to write a report that would be presented to the city council and the community at a later city council meeting. NextEra, Constellation, and IMEA were all invited to speak to the task force about their capabilities and services. Participants of the task force were allowed to ask all 3 companies questions. Upon completion of the task force, the consultant summarized the findings of NextEra and Constellation and presented them to the St. Charles City Council. Here is a summary. Both companies stated that a municipal utility like St. Charles would be a very attractive load to power marketers, and that St. Charles would be able to get several bids, competitive bids, for their power supply. Both provide a mixture of power sources, including wind, solar, natural gas, and nuclear. Both own generation, and they can also purchase power from other sources if needed. Both offer full requirements contracts and provide the same services as the IMEA. Both have 3-year, 5-year, 7-year, or 10-year contracts. Both allow 100% local control. The task force concluded that these 2 companies, NextEra and Constellation, are viable energy and service alternatives to the IMEA. On August 11th, St. Charles voted at their government services meeting on the IMEA contract. The vote was 1 yes and 8 no. St. Charles sent a clear message that they want to consider alternatives like NextEra and Constellation for their power supply and services requirements. NEST commends St. Charles for talking directly to power marketers and getting their questions answered. The process showed leadership and a serious desire for a competitive bid. Naperville City Council should do the same and talk directly to the power marketers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Daniel Bully, followed by David Hatch, Stephen Shamrock, and Gabriela Lombana Arias.
Mayor, City Council, staff, neighbors. My name's Dan Bully. I'm a longtime resident of Naperville, and I threw in my script and I talk from the heart. I know it sounds a little corny, but earlier, Councilman Holzhauer mentioned that there's a lot of people here that are very deeply concerned about the environment. I am one of them. I've spent decades in the green movement, sustainability movement, thousands of volunteer hours. The same for Naperville. Very, very passionate about Naperville. Lived here for over 60 years, over thousands of community service hours here. I spent my whole life attached to the Electric Utility Institute. I know it very well. I work in the nonprofit. I want to speak about that later because, you know, IMEA is a nonprofit. I negotiate labor contracts for 40 years, so I want to speak to what Jim Falar talked about. And one of the things I like more, that I'm more passionate about the environment or Naperville even, is critical thinking. And if you use critical thinking, I'm sorry, but no decision we make here in Naperville will add a single molecule of CO2 or take away a single molecule of CO2 from the environment. That's at other levels. We cannot affect that at that level. We can't. State level, yes. Federal level, no. Nothing we do. If someone tells me a scenario, no, I understand. I understand the feel-good part and the symbolic part of, hey, you know, we want to support getting away from coal. However, that shouldn't hijack the entire discussion, and I feel that's what's happened. But like I said, if you apply critical thinking, it's about the cost. And now, I wrote to you, I don't know if anybody read it, the problems that I had with the Kessler report. He obviously cherry-picked the years because he started in 2016 and his excuse was that, oh, the IMEA data wasn't available. That's the easy part. It's the EIA data that's hard to get to. I didn't see a disclosure of he only picked 5 marketers for his discussion. So and plus he admitted it was hard to measure. So I have to discount that. So we're talking about price. So really what we're going to talk about, who's going to do a better deal for us, right? Well, working in the nonprofit industry, NextEra and Constellation, they have profits of 50 and 60%. I know if it's one's 50, one's 60%. In the nonprofit business, it's nonprofit. You know how complex these issues are. You need experts. You want the nonprofit experts. I work for a nonprofit. I created the first modern construction technology expo in the United States. I didn't make a dime off of it. A lot of people, other people made millions. The people that work in nonprofits are passionate about what they do, and you're going to get a better deal from them. And I'm out of time, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
David Hatch, followed by Stephen Shamrock, Gabriela Lombana Arias, and Catherine Clarkin.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. Dave Hatch, approximately 25 years in Naperville. And my concerns just really are that I'm not sure that this has gone through a request for proposal, that we've gone out and got formal bids from other service providers. I'm hearing about the Kessler report, and I've read that and some of these other things, but we haven't gone out and got competitive bids for this. Over the next 30 years, Naperville will spend $4 to $5 billion on electricity in our community, and it is an economic issue. It's both a social and environmental, but it's at the core, it's going to be an economic issue. So I hope that we would go through that. And I also, looking forward 30 years, if you look back 30 years to 1995, Naperville's under 100,000 people. A lot's changed since then. And you go back to 1965 and imagine what's going to happen in the 30 years forward. In 65, some of you were here in 1965, and Naperville is less than 15,000 people. And in 95, we're less than 100,000, and we're approaching 160,000 now. A lot's changed for Naperville, and I think you guys all have ambitions and hopes that Naperville will be even better in 2055. If you do the same thing and look at the energy market in 1965, almost all our electricity came from coal, oil, and gas, 80%, and hydroelectric, with just a little bit of other. In 95, still 70% was oil, coal, and gas, almost all that coal. Today, in 2025, the mix is 16% coal, with over 40% in gas, and the rest broken up between nuclear, solar, wind, and hydroelectric. with nuclear and the renewables being about 20% each. So a lot's changed in 30 years. The energy market has changed radically, and I would expect the energy market to change at least as much in the next 30 years as it has in the past. So I respectfully, I think the economics need to be understood, but I think we should be very, cautious about getting competitive bidding and be cognizant of the changes coming in the energy market that are still going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Stephen Shamrock.
I've been a Naperville resident for 25 years. Up until a few days ago, Naperville City Council was scheduled today to vote on whether to renew a power contract 10 years early to lock in use of coal. Why would we approve something 10 years early? Makes you wonder about the motivations. Even if you're skeptical of climate change and fossil fuels' effect, not many people doubt that pollution from burning coal is harmful to many. To be direct, it kills people. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, not just anyone. It's probably even affecting all our healths in here right now. And if you believe in climate change and coal's impact on it, then you know the climate will kill more of these people and your loved ones, or make life hard and dangerous via droughts, floods, and extreme temperatures. If you're still skeptical about fossil fuels' negative effect on people, here's a question for you. Would you rather stand for 5 minutes behind a running electric vehicle or a gasoline-powered car? I won't wait too long because I'm pretty sure I know the answer to everyone would be the EV. These chemicals that spew from tailpipes and smokestacks don't just magically disappear. It stays in the air and then the atmosphere, and then it reacts with other chemicals to form ozone and other pollutants. Remember smog? Not good. You know, for the speakers that have come up here for the extension, there's two things I noted about all of them. They don't mention people, and they mention problems and not solutions. I guess innovation hasn't reached the energy industry. These past 2 months have been the first time in my 30-plus years as a homeowner in the Midwest that I've had my AC on for 2 straight months. That didn't used to happen at all. You know, renewable energy is a mature industry. Prices are lower than fossil fuels in many places in the world. Renewable energy is not subject to the whims of energy markets. They can be replaced in an orderly way. Doesn't that sound nice compared to the daily roller coaster ride of street corner gas station economics? Transition won't happen overnight. But there are places and countries where a majority of the power comes from renewables, and they have a plan already for us. And every drop of pollutants we can keep out of the atmosphere, and every molecule of CO2 we can keep out of the air is a life saved or made more worthwhile. Naperville likes to tout itself as a leading city. We impact the world in lots of ways. We have a choice right now. Are we going to give in to inconvenience, or are we going to make the world better for us and everyone? The choice is up to you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Gabriela Lombana Arias, followed by Catherine Clarkin, Janice Geider, and Sandy Whited.
Good evening, council members. My name is Gabriela Lombana Arias. I'm a Naperville resident, high schooler from Neuqua Valley, and member of Power a Better Future, in alignment with Nest's position on the IMEA contract. If we go through the contract renewal process, we will force Naperville to continue to rely on fossil fuels for decades longer. While we appreciate efforts to improve the IMEA proposal, the youth of Naperville, the ones that will grow up to lead and be active members of our city, are concerned of the possibility of locking Naperville into a high-carbon energy city for generations to come. At this moment, Naperville has the opportunity to become a leading city for sustainability. We can take advantage of this by transitioning to solar, wind, and nuclear, and implementing green programs for the health of our people and environment. I see a future where my city, our city, is considered to be standing proudly on the front lines towards a cleaner and safer future. In 30 years, I want to know that the Naperville City Council did its best to fully evaluate every possible option to ensure a better future for my generation and the generations that follow. And to do that, we need to ensure that this decades-long contract does not prevent Naperville from pursuing more competitive and cleaner options as markets are rapidly changing. We need to keep our options open to ensure that every year and every generation we make the right decisions for a better sustainable life for those that follow. How can we make the transition to renewables a priority if we can't even take the first step? We urge the council to take a look at more renewable energy sources to ensure a more transparent and climate responsible decision for Naperville families. We keep saying a better future and a cleaner tomorrow, but the actions and decisions that we choose to do today determine that future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Catherine Clarkin, followed by Janice Geider, Sandy Whited, and Sharon Gorell.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Clarkin, a resident of Naperville for 16 years and a Naperville utility ratepayer. I'm also an environmental scientist, and I'm the former chair of NEST. So I've been around the block for a while working on sustainability issues, enough to see that sometimes the city makes some commitments to sustainability that they haven't followed through on. So I just wanted to remind you of a couple of those. One is that this city council held a workshop, passed a sustainability work plan, put it on the website, and it said that Naperville would solicit an all-source energy procurement to get bids from multiple contractors. So I want to remind you that that is a commitment that this city has made. I'm also asking you to live up to the commitment that you made more recently in June, which is to hold a series of strategic energy workshops. And I also am a big supporter of the youth, and I want to remind you all that you are making these decisions on behalf of these students. They're the ones that are going to be your age in 2055 when the IMEA contract ends. So as a council, you have a choice to make your promise to decarbonize our electricity a reality and live up to that responsibility to the young people. You have a choice to build public trust by really, truly engaging with the community, undertaking a standard procurement process where you consider all of our options, not just IMEA, and creating a climate action plan as the Power a Better Future petition demands. That can be a foundation for making this and many other decisions. Please restore trust in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Janice Geider, followed by Sandy Whited, Sharon Gorell, and Wendy Schild.
Thank you, and good evening, council members and mayor, and my fellow citizens here. My name is Janice Geider. I am a resident of Naperville for about 43, 44 years, and I stand before you in advocacy for our birth to 5 population, our youngest learners, who are most affected by environmental hazards such as air and water pollution, plastic pollution, extreme heat, and poor air quality. All are risk for ambient air pollution, which affects their health and academic performance. From an early age, when we commit to mitigating triggers for respiratory illness in the birth to 5 population, and certain neurodivergent disorders now linked with ambient air pollution, we may realize a reduction in chronic diseases that often result in costly, higher absenteeism rates and suboptimal performance in schools. Asthma, for which there is no cure, is a long-term or chronic disease that will impact a student's ability to function from early childhood through late high school. Poor asthma control is associated with a number of negative effects on children and families. For example, they are more likely to be absent from school, have additional educational needs, and have lower educational attainment. And there is a transactional cost for all of this. So as you think about the economics of this contract, think about what it is doing to the health of our children and to our community. We call these societal costs, including transactional costs for a decision tonight that neglects the environmental harms of coal manufacturing, and particularly to our birth-defied population, and not just Naperville, but across the state of Illinois. Research shows that children who don't develop practical learning skills by the 3rd grade are more prone to have conduct or behavioral disorders that result in school expulsion. The school-to-prison pipeline is rooted in this causality, fueled by disparities that ultimately and negatively affect all communities. State's attorneys across Illinois, including our own Robert Berlin of DuPage County, petitioned our governor to improve the investment in our earliest learners to prevent young children from turning to a life of crime, launching the Illinois Department of Early Childhood Education. What I ask of you now is that we align ourselves, this contract, our community, with what's needed in our birth-to-five population. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Sandy Whited, followed by Sharon Gorell and Wendy Schild.
Hi, my name is Sandy Whited. I live in Naperville, and I worked in the retail power market for over 20 years. I feel compelled to talk about the misinformation that has been presented during the IMEA contract extension discussions. The city really must ensure that they hire unbiased energy experts to assist Naperville with future presentations and negotiations. The discussion we're under has centered over whether Naperville should try to negotiate a contract extension with IMEA, or, once again, the city can procure electricity using competitive request for proposal processes. The decision is difficult because we don't know what the competitive prices will be in the future. And likewise, there are no parameters about what the pass-through costs from IMEA will be either. And since that is the case, we should put great weight on what Naperville's cost experience has been thus far under the IMEA contract. While it is impossible to know what we would have paid for electricity in the competitive market, there are ways to estimate this. But, as is in the case of all estimates, the assumptions, the conclusion you reach is based on, is only as good as the underlying assumptions. Naperville's consultant chose to use the ComEd proxy wholesale price to compare to IME pricing on page 12 of the July 28th presentation. This is a flawed assumption. Naperville would never choose to pay these relatively high rates, and the city is not eligible under ComEd's tariff to pay those rates anyway. Those prices are designed for residential and small commercial customers with demand under 100 kW. And since Naperville's consultant was the director of the state agency in charge of procuring the supply for those small end users, this bad comparison is inexcusable. He knows that Naperville would not and could not pay those prices, and this led to misinformation. His study concluded that IMEA prices have been cost-effective for the city, and this is absolutely false. Luckily, St. Charles hired a consultant who made reasonable assumptions. He compared the average electricity price sold by the 5 largest power brokers in Illinois versus IMEA pricing over the time period 2016 to 2023. The St. Charles consultant found that that city paid a premium of $70 million to IMEA over that time period. Naperville's historic usage is roughly 2.5 times that of St. Charles. So if we extrapolate those findings, it means that Naperville paid an estimated premium of $176 million during the 8-year time frame. The truth is, we have paid millions more under the IMEA contract, and this overpayment has supported the largest polluter in the state of Illinois. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Sharon Gorell, followed by Wendy Schild, Rimvidas Gilvitas, Greg Hubert.
Next speaker.
Wendy Schild, followed by Rimvidas Gilvitas, Greg Hubert, and Jack Pye.
Are you Wendy?
I'm Wendy. I'm Wendy Schild. Thanks. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
You just need to be real close to the microphone for us.
You didn't
It's
hear me?
Super directional.
Okay, is
Thank
that
you.
better? Okay. My name is Wendy Schild. I'm a Naperville resident. I've lived here almost 40 years, about 40 years. And please note my endorsement regarding the need, in my opinion, for the Naperville City Council to renew our membership with the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency, IMEA, now recommended by the city's Public Utilities Advisory Board. I believe the opponents of this prudent step seem to base their opposition on outdated and probably false information regarding the cost of solar and wind power. Since data centers throughout the state and nation are expected to double in the very near future, their high use of energy will increase its cost no matter where we live. To be prepared for AI and all its power-related needs, please open your mind to vote to continue IMEI. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Rimvidas Gilvitas, followed by Greg Hubert, Jack Pye, and Michael Costello.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dr. Remus Gilvitas. I'm a physician, more specifically a board-certified vascular and interventional radiologist. I live and work here in Naperville, and I'm here tonight as a concerned citizen. We are the first generation to truly feel the impacts of climate change, and we are the last generation with the ability to do something about it. The science regarding human-caused global warming is unequivocal. The only resistance comes from misinformation and from those who knowingly see doubt by obscuring the truth, exactly as described in the book Merchants of Doubt back in 2010. 15 years later, Naperville is still getting 70% of its electricity from coal, the dirtiest and most harmful of all major energy sources. Why are we in this predicament? Everyone I know is worried about human-caused global warming. The science is clear. I assumed the city of Naperville was proactive about renewable energy. I was wrong. Back in 2019, I tried to install 27 kilowatts of solar panels with battery storage on my house. Instead, I ran into unnecessary barriers. I was told the maximum system allowed was 9.9 kilowatts, a restriction dating back to 2008. That outdated rule made it impossible to move forward. 6 years later, Naperville is not a leader, but an established laggard when it comes to renewable energy adoption. What worries me most now is that there are people behind the scenes pushing Naperville to sign a contract extension with IEMA 10 years before our current contract even expires. That is worrisome on two fronts. First, from a business standpoint, this makes no sense. Our contract runs until 2035. Locking us in today, keep getting 70% of our electricity from coal is reckless. We've heard claims that carbon capture will solve the problem of coal, but this is simply not true. Carbon capture does not work at commercial scale. It is enormously costly, and coal ash disposal, full of dangerous toxins, will only become more expensive in the future. Add to this the very possibility of costly litigation down the road, and you can see how risky and short-sighted this decision will be. Secondly, from a scientific standpoint, understanding the science is imperative. If you don't understand how human-caused climate change works, how carbon dioxide and methane trap the sun's energy and heat our planet, then you should not be making decisions of this magnitude. The science is clear. Burning coal is one of the largest drivers of climate change, and it also releases toxins that directly harm human health. And let me add this. If there are people in positions of influence who see themselves as representing IMEA's interests, then they should not be part of Naperville's decision-making process. You cannot represent both IMEA and the citizens of Naperville at the same time. Those interests are in conflict. What Naperville needs is objectivity. We must fully study all the alternatives before any decision is made. But let's be clear, extending a coal-heavy contract.
Speaker's time is up.
All right, sorry.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Greg Hubert, followed by Jack Pye, Michael Costello, and Joseph Kosminski.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My ask tonight is that you explicitly list IMEA socialized costs and IMEA rate schedules as an item on the counterproposal list for IMEA. The financial viability of the member-directed resources option depends on the cost of our Naperville contract with a power provider, and the financial viability also very much depends on the IMEA billing credits to Naperville and our Naperville share of IMEA socialized costs per the IMEA rate schedules, which have yet to be developed and approved by the IMEA Board of Directors for MDR. My senior years heard the IMEA CEO state that the wholesale nuclear power costs are double what IMEA pays for other resources. And by my calculations, which I have emailed to you earlier tonight, our MDR project would involve over $7.5 million per year in socialized cost shifts when simply evaluating just 3 of the IMEA socialized costs: debt service, Prairie State operations and maintenance, and Trimble operations and maintenance. Please be aware that the IMEA socialized cost accounts are not listed in public IMEA financial statements, and they are not in the IMEA annual budget. You can only see these socialized cost accounts if you should look at page 4 of our monthly bills from IMEA, and you should also be aware that the cost allocation methodology is documented in IMEA rate schedules updated each year based on proposals by IMEA staff and approval by the IMEA Board of Directors. IMEA socialized costs are also involved in the resolution of the peak shaving counterproposal. Naperville consultant Mark Pruitt used the words cross-subsidization when referring to socialized costs as an important governance matter when forming a new joint action agency. But unfortunately, the scope of his engagement did not involve reviewing the IMEA socialized costs. In closing, my ask again is that you please explicitly list the IMEA socialized costs along with the IMEA rate schedules as an item on the counterproposal list for IMEA. In order for us to evaluate that financial viability of the MDR option, we need to be able to confirm the IMEA board-approved rate schedules with their methodology and formulas for MDR, and the enumerated list of the IMEA socialized cost accounts for MDR. Remember, those are listed nowhere else except on our bill from IMEA on page 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Jack Pye, followed by Michael Costello, Joseph Kosminski, and Dick Furstenau.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. I'm Jack Pye. I'm a junior at Mattia Valley. And we are told by oppositions of coal that renewable energy is clean and ethical, but it's the opposite. In 2021, Illinois passed the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act. That law set the target for our state to run on 40% wind and solar by 2030, 50% by 2040, and to phase out fossil fuels almost entirely by 2050. It sounds very clean, but here's the truth. Wind and solar are not clean by any honest measure. Solar panels are marketed by as saving the planet, yet most never offset the carbon it took to mine, manufacture them, and ship them before they even wear out. They contain toxic materials that we can't recycle at scale, which means they end up as waste. That isn't clean. That's exporting pollution to the next generation. Wind turbines, same problem. Manufacturing those enormous blades take huge amounts of fossil fuels. Transporting them burns thousands of gallons of diesel, and when they fail, the blades aren't recyclable. They get buried in landfills. That's the dirty secret behind green energy. And then we're told energy storage will make renewables reliable. Yet, right now, it's a fantasy. Even the most advanced batteries can store only a few hours of power. And those batteries, they're built on lithium and cobalt mining in Africa and South America, industries infamous for human rights violations, poisoned rivers, and devastated landscapes. There is nothing ethical about child labor. And meanwhile, in China, the world's largest polluter, they keep building unregulated coal plants while pouring money into Western media and nonprofits to promote this so-called green agenda. Why? Well, because while we cripple our own energy grid and chasing an illusion, they strengthen their economy and their global influence. That's not environmentalism, that's manipulation. This is the reality. Wind and solar are not clean. They are not sustainable. They are not reliable. They are a political slogan dressed up as science, and the price is paid by working families through higher energy bills in weaker communities. Illinois can pass laws, write lofty goals, but pretending that unreliable, dirty, and imported technologies are the future is not progress. It's a dangerous gamble with our energy security. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Michael Costello, followed by Joseph Kosminski, and then Dick Furstenau.
Good evening. Michael Costello, DuPage resident, Naperville resident, degreed power engineer, and I am the counterpart to the PEAB in the private sector. Wow, this is a big, big decision. I was in chambers in '07 when the city council unanimously voted to go with the IMEA. We seem to be divided now. If we could only harness the energy that emotions have going on in this room, we wouldn't need any source. But here's the thing. Jack said a lot of things. He missed one thing. Each of those windmills have 600 gallons of oil in them. And when a windmill breaks, they stay there dead. And they kill the birds, too. There is no magic solution other than a Tesla coil. But we don't get that option. We have to deal with how do we get our energy. Along came the IMEA. We went with it with 25 other communities. We spent $175 million to build some of that stuff like Prairie. Do I like coal? No, coal's dirty. I'm a boilerman. I deal with a lot of dirty environments. Coal is awful. But we don't have a silver lining that says, okay, we can do away with coal. I'd like to see coal go away. Maybe AI will figure it out. They're going to be putting in a data center over here in town. Talk about a major bump onto our electrical grid, going to consume huge amounts of energy. What we need is to renew the IMEA so that they can continue to provide us with energy at a cost effect. If we do not, our rates are going to skyrocket, period. Nobody can afford that. So, as a professional, I urge this council to do what the council did in '07. I think maybe Mr. Krieger was the only one here in this room, but I've been right off council for 25 years involved. I know every one of you. I've met the new ones. Haven't talked much, but I've had that rapport with every city council member for the last 25 years.
Speaker's time is up.
So, please.
Next speaker.
Thank you.
Joseph Kosminski, followed by Dick Furstenau.
Good evening, council members and mayor. My name is Joe Kosminski, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Naperville District 203 School Board. On August 4th, the school board unanimously passed a position statement opposing renewal of the IMEA contract. and I've been designated by board leadership to read it into the record this evening. As a major consumer of electricity provided by the City of Naperville, the Naperville Community Unit School District 203 Board of Education strongly opposes the extension of the City of Naperville's contract with the Illinois Municipal Electricity Agency, IMEA, to 2055. Climate change has wide-reaching and increasingly harmful impacts locally and across the board, affecting school learning environments and the health and well-being of our current and future students and staff. As a part of the Focus 203 strategic blueprint, District 203 developed a carbon action plan, or CAP, with input from staff, students, and the community that sets a goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. This plan was unanimously approved by the Board of Education in March 2025. The CAP sets two targets: the 2050 net zero goal and an intermediate target of 35% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, when the current IMEA contract is scheduled to end. The greenhouse gas inventory done as part of the CAP found that 61% of the district's emissions come from purchased electricity, primarily from coal-burning power plants, which account for about 80% of IMEA's power generation. Due to the IMEA's heavy reliance on fossil fuels, an extension of the IMEA contract to 2055 would likely make District 203's net zero goal by 2050 unattainable. The board thus recognizes that it has a responsibility to speak out on this issue that affects the long-term health, sustainability, and educational mission of our school district, which is a major consumer of electricity. In order to work toward a more sustainable future for our students, staff, and community, we strongly oppose a contract extension with IMEA and urge the City of Naperville to explore cleaner and more flexible energy sources that support our CAP. The board stands with students, families, and community members who are calling for climate action and a sustainable future. Thank you for your time and for considering alternative options for a cleaner Naperville.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Final speaker is Dick Furstino.
Good evening, Council. It's a pleasure to be here. It's like coming home. It's been a while since I've been here. But I appreciate your service and what you do for the city. Now, I'm going to tell you a little story. I was here when we put that IMA contract together. And I spent a lot of sleepless nights about what we should do. And you know what? I came down to a little, very simple conclusion. What's worse, this coal plant, or when you go to the light switch and switch it up, the lights don't come on? That is a possibility in Naperville. You got to have a sustainable power plant that will continue to give you power. We didn't know what IMEA could do. They hadn't even built the place yet, and we bid off on it. And oh, by the way, I learned a couple things that, I don't know, it was about a year we were playing around with it. That nuclear power is the cheapest power you can buy. Hydroelectric power from Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Washington, and those states in the far northwest. That's the cheapest power, but you can't get it from there to here. The next cheapest power is nuclear power with the big power plants. Guess what? I don't know what it was, but they weren't selling it to us. They said, you can't buy that. That's a fact. You can ask the guy that's sitting up there. They would not sell us the power. So what we ended up with, we bid off on IMEA, who had a pretty good story, who had a decent past. We figured they could build the power plant. We didn't know they could build it in time. That was part of the problem. Well, you know what? They got it built. And you know what? We haven't had a blackout in this town. We haven't had a brownout. We haven't had rolling blackouts. Nobody's asked us to turn our light switches off or quit running our TVs. The power is there. And you're better to have the power than to no power at all. You can't live without electric power in today's world. And I know that there is a real, and back in the day, even nuclear power, they were afraid that the things were going to melt down and you'd end up killing everybody within 100,000 miles of the place. It wasn't, they hadn't figured out all the safety issues with nuclear power at that point in time. We were still having problems in the country. So we bought from IMEA, who've turned out to be pretty reasonable people, and supplied the power. And I would
Speaker's
suggest.
time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any more speakers?
No more speakers.
We're going to take a 7-minute break. We will be back at 9:12.
L2, pass the ordinance authorizing the execution of a new power sales contract with the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency for the delivery period commencing October 1, 2035.
Councilman White, may I have a motion on L2?
Mayor, point of order.
Councilman?
I understand that there is a motion that you're planning to bring on this item. My concern with bringing something on the agenda that we have no intent to vote on is then that becomes a motion of substitution without the ability for amendment or true council comment on it. My preference would be that if you have a motion that be brought as the motion on the floor.
Point taken. My plan is to put the motion of substitution on the floor after this motion and then have discussion, which I think is the appropriate parliamentary procedure. Correct. So I'll entertain a motion on L2. Councilman White.
Mayor, move to pass the ordinance authorizing the execution of a new power sales contract with the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency for the delivery period commencing October 1st, 2035.
Is there a second? Second, Kelly. We have a motion and a second on L2. I move to substitute the proposed action and direct staff as a motion of substitution to, number one, negotiate with the Illinois Municipal Electric Agency and its Board of Directors an addendum to the proposed power sales contract that addresses the specified 8 concerns and solutions as outlined in the document I circulated with the community yesterday. Those include contract length, member-directed resources, carbon-free milestones, peak shaving, local generation rights, voting rights, transparency, retirement costs for generation assets, and to also bring the addendum and power sales contract back to City Council for its consideration, and, number 2, direct staff to issue a request for proposals for carbon-free electric supply options that may potentially be used as member-directed resources. Is there a second?
Second, McBroom.
Councilman McBroom. So we have a motion on a second on the motion for substitution. There's been a lot of activity that's taken place over the last 3 years, and especially in the last 7 days. There's one thing that's for sure. Every one of you in this room would like to see action. And I think tonight we have an opportunity to come together to create some action. Rejecting an offer on the IMEA early proposal for a renewal and not engaging in negotiation assures 10 years of things as they are today. That is for sure. Additionally, power marketing procurement processes that have been discussed earlier tonight, well, if you got a 10-year contract, it's really hard to go out for a procurement when the potential vendors might be interfering with an existing contract. So those questions might be appropriate more for a 2030 discussion when we could be giving notice that we would potentially be terminating our contract with IMEA in 2035. But right now, I don't think they're really practical. In the motion, as well as the document that I sent out to the City Council, and after hearing back and forth from all sorts of different folks, and quite honestly, looking back at the tapes, reading the contracts again, there's a lot of different provisions that we've added here as this contract was originally proposed to where we are right now. Number one, in contract length, it allows an exit in 2045, 10 years earlier than the proposed renewal. Member-directed resources potentially allow for up to 20% of capacity, or what equivalent numbers for energy consumption would be 50% of energy consumption, and the option to sign purchase power agreements for a wide variety of carbon-free resources, including existing nuclear energy, almost immediately if approved by IMEA. And we have appropriate power purchase agreements that can pair up with this when it comes back to council later on. There's carbon-free milestones. If IMEA fails to meet their self-imposed carbon-free milestones, there's real penalties. And they allow the city to have the right to increase its member-directed resource allocation by a percentage equal to their shortfall. There's peak shaving. It allows Naperville to install peak shaving technology, and we shall be compensated based on market value for the resource it utilizes. Local generation rights, which are of concern to many of us in the room, to make sure that our residents and our schools and our churches and businesses can continue to supply their own energy. And it also asks that the city be clarified for our existing and future city-owned facilities to be included in the MDR provisions. Voting rights, we're looking for the weighted voting system to be implemented for the resource planning portions that the IMEA has. Transparency, we want published financial audits. We want to see Naperville's share of fuel, debt service, operations, and maintenance costs for both Prairie State and Trimble County as allowed by federal and state laws and market regulations. And the source and quantity of all energy procured for the agency shall also be provided on an annual basis. Retirement costs. This is a very big one that's come up in lots of testimony over the last several months. IMEA shall continue to collect its share of retirement costs for Prairie State and Trimble County such that they are outlined in each facility's decommissioning report and are collected by their state mandated retirement dates. That's a very important thing for us. And MDR costs. The city shall issue a bid request for proposal for carbon-free energy options which conform to the member-directed resource standards in the proposed IMEA contract, including existing nuclear technology. So what we're looking at with this proposal is to ask council to authorize our professional staff to negotiate with IMEA to get these terms, and at the same time authorize us to go out for requests for proposals from power providers to give us proposals on clean energy options. And when all those things are completed, they would come back to the City Council for consideration, additional questions, additional hearing, and a final vote. So that is the motion of substitution on the table. Members of council, I look forward to your input. Councilman Holzhauer.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things I think you and I had talked about on the phone, I've socialized this with other members, was adding one additional point on here, which would be a cap of the city's coal power usage, which in the Q&A I asked of staff, they said it would be about 502 megawatt hours would be the expected daily use. So I would ask that that be an additional term, and I was wondering if I could perhaps see a show of hands to see if we could get that added as an additional term.
Is there a show of hands to support Councilman Holzhauer's cap on coal?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman White asked me what that is, and I just wanted to say it, if you didn't get a chance to see the Q&A. Under the mayor's proposal here, the amount of coal used based on current city usage would drop to 592 megawatt hours a day, which to your credit is a substantial savings. One of the concerns I have is if we approve things like data centers, that's adding the equivalent of tens of thousands of new households worth of users. Basically, the coal usage climbs back to a lot higher, potentially even where it is right now, or be even using more coal in the future. So my proposal would be we cap that coal usage at the 592 megawatt hours that we would achieve under this proposal. Anything beyond that would have to be purchased through an MDR, through nuclear, something like that. So basically, we could say, hey, we know we are not going to be emitting more coal emissions than this amount, in a year going forward. Does that make sense, Councilman?
And just to clarify, Councilman Holzhauer, that would be for all customers, not just commercial users or data centers.
Right, so I wouldn't be singling out any one user. It would be the city as a whole's purchase would never be for more than 592 megawatt hours of coal.
Okay, so all customers going forward after that cap would have to be.
So I don't think I would single out any individual customer. And I see Councilor DeSanto nodding. I talked to Mr. Krieger about it. I wouldn't single out any individual user. It would be the city as a whole. Its MDR percentage it's taking would just increase in a year where it happens to grow. By the way, this could go the other direction. The city's, to its credit, had a lot of admirable reductions in power consumption. We may actually not hit the cap depending on what we are, but that's the proposal I have. And just laying my cards on the table, there's a lot that I have to swallow to get to yes on this, but I can get to yes if I can get that on there.
Okay. Councilman Holzhauer, do you have I'm sorry, Councilman Kelly, do you have a clarification for Councilman Holzhauer's question? Okay,
I have a point of order.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yeah, point of order. If we put hands in the air and get consensus for this, would it be formally typed up and added to this list? Or would we have to amend the motion and substitution to include this?
Councilor, do you want to?
The only way that the motion and substitution can be changed is if the original proposer agrees to it. So council could all raise their hands, but the mayor would have to accept that and amend his motion, and then the second would have to amend the motion and substitution. But it's possible if everyone were to agree, and so would the mayor. If the mayor were to agree to it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Councilman Wilson, do you have a question related to this?
I do.
Go ahead.
So to your question, is this going, like, for instance, if we had to go out to bid to make up the energy for this every year, every 3 years, and pay a premium, because this would be load following, but the energy is not actually likely to become projected going forward due to the overall citywide decline in energy usage. So do you have a resolution for that, I guess, is my question?
Can you be a little more specific about your question, like a resolution meaning, sorry?
Like how are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle that?
Okay, so I thought I heard the answer in your question, actually. So what's your question?
So if we go out to bid for this, are you going to add anything around the cost for that, or is there no concern for that?
I mean, so I think there's 6 of one, half dozen of another, right? I mean, if we take on, let's say, a data center that's going to use 72 megawatt hours, even if we were 100% sourcing from IMEA, they don't have that capability right now, right? They're going to have to go out, negotiate, figure something out, possibly charge a penalty. And yes, if we're getting nuclear for MDR or something like that, we'll have the same issue with them. But I don't see the issue as being worse one way or the other.
Okay.
Councilman Kelly, do you have a question to clarify for Councilman Holzhauer? Your light's on.
I know, I'm thinking, no, right now I'm okay, thank you.
You're burning power over there. All right. So let's show of hands that would be in support of Councilman Holzhauer's request for a change to the motion of substitution. Okay, I see 4, 5 hands. Okay, 6 hands. Councilman, one thing that I think would address the concern about potentially significant price increases for all of our customers. Perhaps we could get to somewhere where Councilwoman Gibson and I were earlier today, and that would be to carve out what we would call the true mega users and require a user over a certain size to go to additional MDR and ask that beyond the MDR request on the table right now, which would be the 20%. So take, for instance, there's been mention of a data center. Require a data center, which is a significant user, to go 100% clean energy and not carve into the existing MDR numbers that we have, but add to the MDR for those mega projects. Would that be a reasonable
So I
compromise?
appreciate that, Mayor. I heard that from staff and from Councilwoman Gibson and actually Nest, so numerous people brought it up. There's a very specific reason I phrased this with a cap of 592 megawatt hours. And the concern is I understand we have to draw a line, and it's somewhat arbitrary about who's large enough to qualify for that program. I mean, one number that was thrown out, I don't know if this is your number, but a number that was thrown out was 30 megawatts. I mean, that's a huge user, right? I mean, you could be the equivalent of something like 55,000 cars, you know, worth of CO2 a year and still be under that. So I think it's a much better principle for the city to just say, hey, we have a cap. We're not going to burn more coal than this. I think that's something the audience can understand. I'm swallowing a lot of desire to just competitively bid this, go to PPAs, but I think I can get to a yes if what the 6 voted for is one of the principles. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have more comments later, but we jumped right into the weeds, deep into the weeds right off the bat here on this one specific point. And I guess my thought is, I'm thinking about the comment you made when you got to the end of the list that you presented, which was, I think if I heard it right, which was that staff would be enabled to negotiate. If they were successful, something would come back to council to then vote on at a future date. The public would consider it in the interim. Council would consider it in the interim. And so what I'm hearing, I'm hearing what Councilman Holzhauer said loud and clear, which is it's a lot to swallow, and I think that's true. I think we probably all agree on what the issue is. I agree anyways. I'll say for myself, I agree with Councilman Holzhauer as to the potential problem there. And I'm wondering if there's some way to basically to give our staff some leeway to work on that. I mean, this is all very new, right, in the last many days, literally. And so if we had 6 hands in the air for what Councilman Holzhauer said, a strong consensus, but I saw the mayor did not put his hand in the air, and Council DeSanto said, we need the person who made the motion to agree to it, to amend it tonight. So I see that not happening, but I wonder if there's another version of it that would provide a little bit of leeway to try to solve for that particular problem in a way that when we come back in the future, it might work, it might not, but it would give us some ability to try to tackle that problem.
Yes, and my response at this point would be, if we put the coal cap on for all customers, and then those PPAs come back at a later time beyond that coal cap, and the markets are completely messed up, now our residents and our small businesses and every other current utility customer isn't going to have any choice in the matter. We're going to have to lay out those costs at whatever they are to those customers, and they're going to have to pay it. That's the line in the sand proposal, as I'm understanding it, Councilman. And what concerns me is, I mean, we just had a half hour ago conversations about people not being able to afford groceries. And I hear every day about how people can't afford their taxes and their utility bills in this community and how we need affordable housing. So to do something that would potentially put our residents and our businesses at risk, I'm fine with if we want to throw it out there as a potential option for data centers and mega users, but to draw that line in the sand and hope that the power markets play nice with us down the road, I don't think I want to pass that along to forward councils who are going to have to deal with that. Councilman McBroom.
Thank you, Mayor. I assume we're talking about 2035 through 2038. So 3 years after our contract is over, there's a 50% reduction in carbon mandated by law. 4 years later, the coal plant shut down. So this conversation about coal caps, I mean, I guess we're talking about a limited window there. We're not talking about forever. I'm just making the point that it sounds like we're having a conversation between coal and clean energy, and the state's already made that decision for us.
Okay, Councilman Holzer.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for understanding, would you be amenable to a relatively low limit where people are having to go to MDR? So if a new business comes to town that wants 3 megawatts, is that sufficient? I mean, that's still a heck of a lot of power compared to what residential users are using.
I would agree to data centers or something north of 30 megawatts, I think is absolutely fair. Where we get into some concerns about legality, I think it would be we start punishing new businesses that come to Naperville and say, okay, this is your rate plan, and since you've been here a while, then you get a better rate plan. And right now we have our top 10 customers. I mean, I think our highest is 12 megawatts, which is a very significant employer in our community. And I would hate to see a situation where we force them into a situation that they never anticipated and we never anticipated because we were trying to only do something for new businesses. So, Council, can you clarify some of the discriminatory concerns that you expressed prior?
Really, Mayor, I think I'd have to do more research, and I'd like to advise council on that separately. But, just the idea of kind of deviating from our standard billing policies, I think could be a concern for us. It may be something that we can deal with through potentially with zoning or our agreements. If any type of large operator were to come in the city, we would prefer maybe to negotiate it through an agreement as part of the entitlements process. That may be an option, but again, there's more work that needs to be done on it, but there are some legal concerns that we would have to further analyze.
Thank you. Councilman Holzer, are you follow up?
Sure. It sounds like you're not amenable to taking the direction of 6 council members, so I'll just make my comments while I'm voting no. Members of the community, you are our bosses, and it's our job to have your backs. You've been clear about your priorities, which are affordability and burning less coal. Several members of our council met last week and came up with a plan that's now before you. When I heard about this meeting, I had questions. We have the ability to ask written questions of our staff members in advance of the meeting, and so I asked this question about the proposal. What would the city's coal usage be if this proposal were to be adopted? And as you heard earlier, it'd be 592 megawatts of coal-fired energy, would be generated on behalf of Naperville each day. That's the compromise that was being considered by a small group behind closed doors. While this first draft proposal is a useful first step, it leaves out one glaring item, which is a cap on the amount of coal used. To state that differently, an additional term should be added. Without a cap, we get potentially the worst of all worlds, which is higher rates and burning even more coal once data centers arrive. For those of you who aren't aware, a single data center, once complete, can consume as much power as 60,000 residents. And if the I-88 corridor is developed with multiple data centers, our coal usage will blast through the 592 megawatt hour target. And indeed, our coal usage could be even greater in the future than it is today. My vote depends on a hard cap on coal. Any new power use beyond that must be nuclear or a different carbon-free source. Paying more for power and burning more coal is the worst of all worlds, and I'm a hard no on that. This proposal is one day old in the public consciousness. It should not be rushed forward, and particularly with the gravity of the consequences at hand. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this addendum is a step in the right direction. I'm grateful to everybody who spent so much time over the last 2 days, week, but also more importantly, 6 months, a year, how long we've had this extension out. I know there's a lot of members of our community who have poured over every detail of this contract and have learned more about power generation than they probably ever thought they would. I think this conversation tonight actually shows why voting on this is a little premature. I think it would have been appropriate as a new business item. Like I said, these are steps in the right direction. I would like to see staff negotiating with these, but I'm not comfortable putting my staff of approval on this amendment. There's too many unanswered questions, too much vagueness. For me, I don't think the community has had proper time to weigh in on this. It was posted just over 24 hours ago. I believe IMEA saw this sooner than most members of our community, and I have a problem with that. I understand that us voting for this shows IMEA that we are willing to negotiate in good faith. I don't think that changes. I think if staff can work to get some concrete, hard numbers on these, and we've had time to evaluate them, then maybe there is a path forward here. But I wasn't elected to represent IMEA. I was elected to represent our community, and I think they deserve more time to look through this amendment.
Okay, Councilman Kelly. Councilman Kelly.
All right, thank you, Mayor. A lot of thoughts tonight. It's been a very long road, certainly over the past year. For myself, it's been something I've been looking at for probably 7 years now. It was probably the first issue I really dug into when I first ran for council about 7 years ago. You know, my first job out of law school as an environmental energy lawyer. That's why I went to school, was to try to help with issues like these. And it was the first issue I really cared deeply about within the city, and I've been working on it for years ever since. Thank you to everybody who showed up tonight, and like Councilwoman Gibson said, we've been working on this for some of you for a few weeks, some for a few months, some for many, many years. It's been a long road to get here, and my view, pretty much most of those 7 years, well, I'll say when I first looked at it 7 years ago, I had questions very initially of, this contract is pretty difficult. Is there any way we can change it, get out of it? Met with other attorneys who had worked on this contract specifically for the city, and they said, no, this is an ironclad contract. It runs till 2035. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're stuck with it. And that's been the case ever since. When IMEA came to us with the renewal, you know, over a year ago now, I asked consistently to city staff, is there any room to work on this? Can we negotiate? Will IMEA talk to us? Will they increase MDR, do other things? And was told consistently, no. So in light of that answer, I was always very comfortable thinking that we should not renew. To me, we've heard it many times here in other cities, St. Charles and Winnetka. Winnetka they really favored the analogy of the three-legged chair, which is something I've spent a lot of time thinking about: sustainability, cost, and reliability. Those are really the three fundamentals of our electricity. And the way I view it is that two of those three are fairly neutral in terms of evaluating our options. What should we do? Should we renew or should we not? And some might disagree, but from my perspective, cost is basically a net neutral because we just flat out don't know on either one of them. We don't know with certainty what IMEA would charge starting in 2035. And we don't know with certainty what an alternative provider, a power marketer, or anybody else. It's too early to give a bid. They've told us that. We just can't really know. We can look back and make guesses. Everybody can make predictions about where the energy markets are heading, but extremely difficult to say with certainty. Reliability, from my perspective, is a wash, and I've spent a lot of time talking with staff about that. And former councilman Firstenau, I hear you on that you got to keep the lights on. It's critical, but my understanding from talking to staff, it really is not our contract with IMEA or whoever the power marketer might be that keeps the lights on. It's really the job of our city's electric utility and PJM. That's what keeps the lights on. And I asked the question specifically of staff, does it matter, say compare Naperville versus Lisle, a ComEd city versus Naperville with IMEA. There's no doubt there's strains on demand, huge power, data centers coming in. There could be strains on the grid. And I asked the question, if there are strains on the grid, would it ever be the case because we procure our energy from IMEA and Lisle procures it from ComEd, would our lights go off, or I'm sorry, would Lisle's lights go off before ours would? And the answer is no. It's handled by PJM, who operates the grid. It does not matter where you buy your electrons from. And our city's utility does a fantastic job of keeping the lights on in storms, getting power back up. We have a far better rate than ComEd in that regard, but that's a city issue, not an IMEA issue. So for me, it comes down in large part to the sustainability question, and there we're very different, clearly. Naperville is very heavy coal. The rest of the state is not. The rest of the country is not. So that's a huge difference. And without IMEA being willing to negotiate on that MDR clause, which is the answer I was always given, including up through last Tuesday, I was told they would not negotiate. And I said, okay, well then I'm comfortable not renewing. Now, very recently, I think I heard it for the first time on Thursday, the situation changed and IMEA is seemingly, willing to come to the table and maybe negotiate in good faith with us if we're willing to do the same. And as the mayor said, it would move up our ability to change the source of our power very significantly by a significant number of years and by a significant percentage, where right now we're about 10% carbon-free. We could, by the end of the year, potentially be up to 60% if we executed on a 20% peak MDR, an increase of 50% within a few months, and then maybe another 10% on that after a year and a half with the B Hollow plant. So we could, in theory, in the next year and a half, be up to 70% carbon-free, where today we're sitting at 10. And to me, that is something that is really, truly worth considering. The way I look at it, my background and my thoughts on climate change are that climate change is a serious problem, and it's a serious problem today. It's not a problem that's going to start 10 years from now that we should be looking at, thinking about what can we do about it 10 years from today. If we have an opportunity to do something about it today, I think we've got to seriously consider that opportunity. Now, it comes with a lot of questions. These are not final, fully fleshed out points, but I think a lot of critical points that go beyond MDR. Transparency, voting rights, and voting rights is something that's very significant, especially if it's going to be a weighted system for resource planning. That's something we've never had, where we would actually have the percentage that we use of the power to give input on that particular topic. We've got work to do, I think, on all of those items, in particular the MDR, back to that focus. My opportunity and concern is the opportunity is that we can reduce our carbon emissions drastically very soon, but my concern is we don't know who would provide it, we don't know what it would cost, and we don't know, most critically, if this council would vote to approve it. What I was happy to hear from the mayor is that we will bring this back to the council if we move forward with this negotiation authority and decide if council wants to do it or not. For me personally, I can state unequivocally, if the council is not willing or able to execute on the MDR contract, I would not be willing to vote to renew with IMEA. That's my red line in the sand. If the attractive portion of this addendum is increasing the MDR, reducing our carbon footprint, we need to know that would happen. So my thought is we can take a breath. We don't take a final vote tonight. We give the public time to fully vet and weigh in on the next steps. Maybe the most critical thing at the very bottom of the screen for anybody who can see it right now is where it says the city staff shall issue a bid/request for proposal. That's probably the thing I've heard more commonly than anything else from residents is we should issue an RFP. And this would not be for 100% of our power, but it would be for about 50% of our power starting tomorrow. And that is a very valuable thing. We don't know what the result would be, but to have an RFP issued where we otherwise don't have a chance for 10 years, I think it's something that we really need to explore fully. It would give the city a chance to meet our carbon goals, the school district a chance to meet their carbon goals when they otherwise probably wouldn't. And so I appreciate the work of everybody on council, the mayor, all the council members who worked hard, a lot of phone calls the last few days, Nest, other members in the community. I hope we can continue doing that work. And so for those reasons, I will support the motion. I do hope that we can add one bullet point that would give the city staff flexibility to negotiate on the general concept of future large users. If the mayor would be willing to include that additional point in his motion, and that could be a flexible range of options. I don't even know what they are. I heard from Mr. DeSanto, he's got to do the research. We don't even know. We're throwing numbers out about 3 or 30. I have no idea what that right number is, but I'd like to find out if that could be included. So thank you.
I'd be fine with adding that, Councilman.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Lungenbauer.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to thank all the speakers who came out tonight, especially all the students. I know it can be super scary being on that side speaking in front of such a big group, but it's really good practice for later, and so I really appreciate you all being here. I also want to thank all the people who have been emailing and voicemails. I've been trying to respond to all of them. I'm a little behind right now, but really thank you for all of the emails. I've learned quite a lot from some of the attachments that you've sent and the links, and so I really appreciate it. Here's how I see it, and I echo a lot of what Councilman Kelly said. There's been a ton of work going on behind the scenes about this, and what you see on the screen right now is the culmination of a lot of discussions between staff and council and the mayor and Nest and community partners, like so many conversations to get to this. And I think this is excellent. I think this is a bridge between both sides. It gets us closer to renewables now than in 10 years. Like, regardless of if we say no to IMEA, we're stuck with IMEA for the next 10 years. We will never see this close to renewables for another 10 years. And I see this as a compromise between the two sides and a bridge. And so I like it. I think it not only does that, but it also allows, if we go forward with it, it would allow staff to continue to benefit from IMEA's, administrative abilities. I mean, that is a huge benefit, I think, to the city. And I like that it protects us from a lot of the gray areas in the contract right now. There are things in there that there have been a lot of questions from you all not knowing what is going on behind the scenes, and I think this really tries to address that. I do like what Councilman Kelly just said about the data centers, about large users, and I kind of thought that was what Councilman Holzhauer was trying to get at with putting a cap or with data centers, and I might have misunderstood that, but I do like having kind of a bring your own energy type concept for data centers, and if it's something that we know that they're going to be contributing a lot, then maybe we have to have them, kick in a 5% MDR or something like that. I don't know what that would look like, but I do kind of like that bring your own energy concept, which is, I think, what you're trying to get at that. So I do support this. I think it's a good first step, and I'd like to hear comments from everybody about it. So I will be supporting it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Syed.
Thank you, Mayor. Naperville community, thank you so much for being here today, speaking, engaging, And I see your passion. I see your commitment. You care about Naperville. You care about Naperville future generation. And I also wanted to give a shout out to all the youth who came, who spoke, and they have a passion, and they're worried, they're concerned about their future generation. And further, I have received hundreds of emails in last 2 months. I met hundreds of community members, youth, everybody, talking about IMEA contract. So out of 10, 9 people said, Ashfaq, if you are signing for a contract as it is, we are not going to support. We are not going to support this contract at all. So I agreed on that. You are the people who have elected me. You are the people who made me city council member to represent you, not IMEA. I'm not working for IMEA. I'm not going to work for them. I'm going to work for you. I'm going to listen to you as a community member. 100%. What the community needs, we need to accept that. You have the power. You can dictate us. IMEA cannot dictate us. And for last 2 years, I've been hearing about IMEA dictating, ruling us. A lot of harsh word I can use, but I don't want to use those. But please, my recommendation is to follow the community, because they are the people. And it helps us as well as city. I'm really concerned about a lot of things, but in last 48 hours, things have changed. We spoke as a city council members, mayors, multiple times in last 7 days, 48 hours, till morning. I was out of town. I have been on call with mayor. I've been on call with city council members. We have spent so much time, and today we look good on what mayor has presented right now, but definitely we need time. In 24 hours, we cannot take a decision for a $2 billion contract. I cannot take it. If you want to take, yes, maybe people can take it. I cannot take it. So definitely I would like to support this, what the mayor has proposed. And Ian, I like the idea about having a cap, so that definitely we may have some corporates who would like to use more energy, and we can have some cap or some condition, so that we can keep a tap of those things. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Wilson.
So, I'm a liaison for with the PUAB board. I sat in many of the meetings, listened to the consultants speak. On that note, I did have a question for Director Groth. Heard a few people ask about the consultants, CES and Pruitt, that came and spoke. We did issue RFPs for those. Is that correct?
Mr. Groth.
Councilman, we issued an RFP for the Customized Energy Solutions consultant.
Okay. How many responses did we get back for that?
I believe we received 1. Could you confirm, Director Munch?
I believe that's correct. I have to go back and check definitively.
From CES?
That's correct.
So, I'm just asking because I've heard a few other folks mention the gentleman who spoke to St. Charles, and presumably he didn't bid on ours, nor did anyone else. So I only bring that up because I've heard talk of bias with the consultants used or whatever. And I guess I just also had a comment with overall with how we've seen this contract unravel, I guess in particular. I shouldn't say unravel, just be presented. We have the 10%, had the 10% MDR. I see with this option we'd have more. people wanted more renewable. That'd be what we're getting. I guess, if you contrast that with, District 203's out here, for example, their goal, if I have this right, is a reduction of 35% by 2035, starting from the year 2018 as the base year. So I'm not entirely sure what that 2035 target is. But regardless, with the original contract presented, the carbon here would be less than the alternative of not signing it by 2050. So, I mean, it would seem like one would ought to support it if you're, rather than ask not to, from my perspective, logically. But I mean, I've talked about the concerns of the citizens for some time now, and particularly the more disadvantaged residents. And just very little, I think, is brought up about that. And quite frankly, it's just disconcerting to me. Would continue to see young adults not being able to buy homes because they can't afford them. And people here don't seem to care about it. It's quite just bewildering to me, considering the amount of income of the people here. With just, like I said, just a little concerned with the impact of rising energy prices that would do to them. So, I mean, I would have been in full support of the original proposal, and then with this addition and people seemingly want, I guess you could say, to reduce carbon and the other issues around that, I would think it would appease you, but that's just me. So, yeah, these are my comments on it. I would support it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman White?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you for everyone who came out here. Whether either side of the issue you're on, the fact that you're here tells me you're passionate about the issue, and you should be commended for that. I mean, that's what makes this community special, is we have a lot of passionate people who care about things that happen here in Naperville. So thank you for that, especially the the students that came out. You all are going to be up here at some point getting to make these decisions, and I think the fact that you're here doing it is exceptional. I'm looking at what's been presented, and this didn't happen by accident. It took a lot of hard work. A lot of folks, I spoke to some of the folks that came out and spoke today, and things that you have been saying for years, I see embedded in what I'm looking at here. And so I think the mayor even said he spoke to several people, and this is not something he came up with on his own. This is the input that came from many of the people who came out here and spoke today. So I'd like to congratulate you all for that. I do have a question before I go. A lot of discussion about data centers and so on, but do we have any type of provision that if a data center or a company wants to come in, can they negotiate for their own energy with a provider of their choice?
Director Groth?
Currently today, no, they do not.
Is that something maybe we should consider? I mean, we talked about adding the data center provision in there, but should we give them the option of, if they find a cheaper way of doing it, to do it themselves?
Director?
I think that was considered before with the previous motion or the previous discussion about, some legal concerns around doing that and requiring them to have a different energy mix and potentially a different price structure than others. So I would defer to.
I think the councilman's asking if we should allow for the data centers to go on their own outside of us, the utility, to procure their power directly. Was that your question, Councilman?
Thank you. Currently, the city of Naperville has an exclusive right to serve, right? And so under state law, we have the right and the responsibility to serve all of our customers within the municipal territory. So I would say that it would be in our best interest to not give up that right.
Okay.
And Mr. Krieger.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, data centers are coming in a lot of places, and we've asked them how they've been handling this, because there are actually several data centers who some operate at 100% clean power, and the way they've been dealing with it in other areas of the nation is through the purchase of renewable energy credits, and that is something that would be allowed by the city of Naperville.
Okay. And not to get off topic, but there's been a lot of discussions about data centers, and I get what they do, but I'm a little, I guess would like to ask the question, what really are they providing to the city of Naperville? Because it's not like they're employing a lot of people, they're using a lot of energy and so on. So maybe a discussion for another day to discuss the benefits of having, or the disadvantages of having the data center. The one thing as I look at all the different things that's proposed here, a lot of good stuff, as I said before, but I don't see is a lot of objective criteria. What's going to define a lot of these things? I think that's the part that, for me, that's missing in some cases. I would like to see, if we're looking at our MDRs, could we potentially have those approved? We put out, we go through the process of doing an RFP. We let these, part of that RFP shows what we're looking for from an energy perspective, and maybe that goes along with some of the objectives that we're talking about in the action plans, but we can do that with that 20%. But I would like to see that codified before we would sign anything with IMEA. That way we know what we're getting, and we potentially, as Councilman Kelly said, potentially can get this up to 70% renewables for Naperville within the next year or so. So I think that becomes a big piece for us to consider as we go forward. Again, before we sign anything, I think Mr. Hubert had some great points as well. A lot of folks did, but his concern about the socialized, make sure we're defining that socialized cost and the rate schedule for the community. I'd like to see those types of metrics put in to here. So for me, we're not signing anything right now. We're allowing staff to go out and continue to bring these things forward and negotiate with IMEA, but I think we need to codify what we want staff to come up with so they can bring it back. And in a suspense, how long do we plan on doing this? I mean, this could go for, could we get this done within the next month or two, or are we talking about another year? And then all of a sudden, new councils are coming on and all that. I don't want to do that. So let's define the parameters from a timeline standpoint. When should staff come back based off of what our IMEA has said, and then maybe we can go from there. I don't know. What if they come back with a counter proposal on some of these items? The discussions can continue, and we need to be prepared for that. But I'd like to see those parameters presented so that we're not just kind of dragging us down the line. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McBroom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm largely supportive of this effort. When I read through these things, these are all things that, when we say IMEA, we're talking about 30 other towns and us. We are the vice chair of the board. It sounds like we're on a used car lot and we can't trust these people, and we need to put things in writing in blood. So I get that. I understand what this is now. We don't necessarily trust these largely small town people who maybe we're smarter than them. So if these things need to be put in writing, fine. The concern I have here, and this whole debate has been framed on distrust and deception that we can't trust the people that we're talking to, whether they're consultants or our city staff, that I don't know if I can trust this agreement. Because with this MDR, and what Councilman Kelly just mentioned, well, we have to wait to get the pricing on the PPA, and what if the price is too high? Well, nobody wants to hear it, but coal is the cheapest right now. Nobody wants to hear it. You're going to go out and get a PPA. My understanding is nuclear may not be too far off. You are going to raise people's utility prices, and that's fine. We all voted for that, okay? We want clean energy. It's going to be higher prices, and yes, it's going to be unfortunate for single mothers and people with lower incomes. That's the situation we're in. So I don't want to be in a situation where I say, hey, let's go negotiate, and then 3 months later we get pricing on PPA, and oh, it's too much. That's proof that we have to go talk to for-profit power marketers. But, some of the misinformation that's out there, I've gone in circles with people. We're not getting an unsolicited bid. Why are we doing this 10 years early? Where there's a law called CEJA, okay? There's a seismic shift to renewables. Our partners need to plan. Solar and wind contracts are 20 years, whatever. It's a circular conversation. I respect what the mayor is doing here. I think he needs to get a lot of credit for the work that he's put together. He probably has a little more grace than I do, but he understands the reality. And I think that there's a chance that we all walk away from this being a little bit unhappy about everything, but we all maybe can get just about enough of what we want to make a deal. And I think that would be great if the mayor can work and we can negotiate. Assuming IMEA doesn't tell us to pound sand. They might. I might if I was them, after hearing what some people up here on the dais have been saying about them. But we'll see. I would hope that they want us involved for bond ratings and political influence and things. There's some reasons they would want us. So I appreciate what the mayor is doing here. I'm going to be supportive of it. I'm going to say my piece here on a couple things that have bothered me in this process. And I'm going to talk about Nest. Okay? I think the behavior of the leadership of Nest has been unprofessional. I think it's been disrespectful to our staff at the city. I think you've been overtly political, the leadership, okay? And you're operating under a city banner that gives you credibility. At the PUAB meeting on April 8th, 2 of the leaders in Nest brought up politics twice, implying that they won an election here. They even quoted Councilman Gibson, reminded her of some things that she said in her campaign. I don't know, to maybe remind her where her loyalties are. They sent a message that they won an election, okay? Fast forward to this discussion that nobody wanted to have that I had to push, because I think that the professional thing to do is to let our partners know if we're in or out, instead of ignoring them. An op-ed was written in The Sun in July by Nest that accused our city staff of rigging the CES selection process and the recommendation. Accused our staff of engaging in illegal behavior. I don't think you've been acting in good faith. And if it was up to me, which, by the way, the amount of hours that our staff you take from them, and they do it respectfully, and they drop everything they're doing, and the hours and hours, while you're accusing them of being nefarious criminals.
Councilman, you got to wrap this up, please, so we can.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
I'm almost done.
Councilman.
Hey. Yes, it's been really rude. And if it was up to me, you'd be stripped of your task force status at the city. And at the very minimum, you owe an apology to the mayor and our city, our professional
You're out of
city
order,
staff.
Councilman. Okay. Councilman or Councilwoman Gibson.
All right, that definitely took a turn. So I'll speak to my original comments, that I want to be on the record saying that I absolutely want everything in writing. the notion that we would sign a 30-year agreement for multi-billion-dollar contract for a city of 150,000 people based on trust is staggering to me. We can trust, but we verify. We have lawyers and contracts for a reason. When you're doing business, especially on this scale, it's not a matter of trust. It's putting it in the contract. To where the rest of that comment went, I thought that was incredibly disrespectful to chastise members of our community from the dais like this.
Okay. Regarding the motion substitution, I want to amend it, specifically member-directed resource, to include at the end, if the city brings additional significant load to be further decided by council and staff to the agency, Naperville shall have the right to have this included in its MDR. Is there a second? Or Councilman McBroom, are you willing to second? Are you willing to second the amendment to the motion of substitution?
Yes, second.
Okay, yeah, she can't edit it on the screen. We're limited there. Okay, everybody on the same page of what the now amended motion of substitution is? Okay, Councilman Holzhauer.
Yeah, just to clarify, yes, I do understand it. It's not the request I asked for, so I will still vote no for it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, I think we're ready here. We have a motion and a second on the amended motion of substitution. Roll call.
Syed?
Yes.
White?
Aye.
Wilson?
Yes.
Worley?
Yes.
Gibson?
No.
Holzhauer?
No.
Kelly?
Aye.
Longabaugh?
Aye.
McBroom?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-2. Thank you, council, for working together tonight and getting us to some sort of action on, I think, what everybody in this room would like to see is action. And this is one small step, reminding you that more steps need to happen. Obviously, the negotiations with the IMEA, power purchase agreements, all of this stuff coming back to a future council meeting. So lots more to do, and there is progress. Thank you.